Did you ever have a friend surprise you so loudly that you actually dropped what you were holding? That's how it looked when the Cowboys sent Micah Parsons away, and somewhere between the handshake and the press release, a quieter, sharper reaction began to leak out. Dak Prescott wasn't exactly throwing a going away party. Think about the scene: a practice field in early summer, helmets clacking, coaches barking, and locker room rhythms that usually hum along like a well oiled machine. Then add a podcast mic, a few offhand comments that travel faster than a blitz, and suddenly small fractures get magnified into headlines. Dak and Parsons always played clean on the grass. They've never had a public showdown at the snap. But according to insiders, some of what Parsons said off the field, particularly on his own podcast, didn't sit right with Prescott. It wasn't about missed blocks or a busted assignment. It was about tone, ego, and who gets to steer the locker room narrative. Let's slow down and feel the texture of that. Locker rooms are not democracy, they're ecosystems. There are the beloved figures who make everyone feel seen, the quiet pros whose steady work anchors the room, and the electric personalities who either lift or unsettle the vibe. Zach Martin, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, those names rid like adhesive. Parsons, brilliant and explosive, was reportedly seen by some teammates as playing a different song: flashy, sometimes unilateral, and occasionally playing out of structure, chasing a highlight rather than a team-first lane. When that starts to happen, it shows up in subtle ways: eye rolls in meetings, a missed inside help on running downs, a room that tightens when the tape is rolling. Now rewind the tape a little further. Ownership called the plays from the front office. Jerry Jones weighed immediate production against long-term economics and opted to pull the lever. The Cowboys sent Parsons to Green Bay for veteran Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks, a package that screams future flexibility. Jones framed it as a strategic choice, citing the kind of long-term commitment Parsons would command and the value of stockpiling draft capital. But what those sound bites don't capture is the softer accounting the team made about culture. Sometimes keeping a disruptive star costs more than money. It costs cohesion. That's where Dak's reported frustration matters. Prescott has been the emotional and practical leader of this franchise. He takes snaps, sets tones, and negotiates relationships in ways the scoreboard can't always show. When a quarterback believes that a teammate's public comments or extracurricular projects are undermining trust, it becomes more than noise. It becomes a tactical problem. A podcast line can be a distraction that echoes through a locker room and a prep meeting, and if a QB feels it chips away at unity, his patience wears thin. Losing a defensive star hurts, but preserving a locker room culture that helps the offense hum might have felt worth the price. There's also football logic layered into the emotional calculus. Critics pointed out Parsons sometimes chased splash plays that left Dallas vulnerable against the run. The Cowboys finished the previous season shaky in run defense, and when you combine schematic worries with interpersonal tension, decision makers start to ask, is this a fit or a friction point? The trade then reads 2 ways: a financial, long-term chess move and a human decision to recalibrate team chemistry. Flip the coin and imagine Green Bay's view. The Packers signed Parsons and handed him a historic contract. They're buying a level of chaos on the edge, the kind that forces offenses to alter game plans and that creates easy numbers for the rest of the defense. For Jordan Love in that locker room, Parsons is a jolt of identity. For Cowboys fans, he becomes an antagonist in a division rival jersey. And for Dak, he gets a vivid, looming reminder that the person he once threw to a huddle with is now an opponent walking across the field in a different helmet. That's a complicated feeling: pride, annoyance, curiosity, and a twinge of betrayal, all wrapped together. Here's the scene everyone is waiting for. Week 4 in Arlington. Dak Prescott versus Micah Parsons. 2 seconds on the calendar, and every sideline camera will zoom like it's the final scene of a movie. Will there be words exchanged? Almost certainly. Will they be fireworks or polite barbs? Probably somewhere in between. But the real question is quieter. Will the Cowboys be the same room that sent him away, or will they be a room that thrums because the difficult choice clarified what mattered most? And for Dak, will the meeting be a professional checklist or a moment where he says, publicly and forcefully, what he has been saying in meetings all summer? The twist in this whole saga is that trades are rarely pure arithmetic. You don't simply balance sacks for draft picks, you balance trust, patience, and narrative. Parsons' talent is indisputable. He makes quarterbacks flinch and forces coordinators to draw new protection maps. But talent that disrupts a locker room is a double-edged sword. Teams can harness it, or it can fray the margins that win late-game fourth quarters and playoff series. The Cowboys chose to aim for continuity and draft currency. The Packers chose to aim for immediate seismic impact. Both choices are bets. Both reveal organizational identity. There's a human beat here I want you to hold. Dak Prescott didn't issue a statement. He didn't clap back on social media. His reputation is built on managing moments, on keeping the ship steady when storms gather. That quiet is meaningful. It's the kind of leadership that often chooses a path away from chaos, not necessarily because the chaos is bad, but because the leader knows the cost of it. Sometimes strength is the courage to let a star go. So where does that leave us? In the short term, we will watch sacks, screen passes, and scoreboard drama. We'll get sound bites and viral cuts and probably a few awkward exchanges on Sunday night. In the long term, we will see whether chemistry or chaos was the better currency. Did Dallas trade away a superstar or buy back a culture that can win more consistently? Will Green Bay's gamble on Parsons accelerate their ceiling, or will cap and fit questions show up like interest payments down the line? Time and a few hundred snaps will tell. If you want one line to keep the conversation tight, stars win games, but culture wins championships. You can keep a superstar on your roster, or you can keep a room that trusts each other when everything counts. Dak's silence may say more than any interview ever could. And when week 4 comes around, that silence will either be a quiet prelude or the loudest answer of all. Dak Prescott sounded unsurprised but relieved after Micah Parsons' blockbuster trade to Green Bay. And a new report suggests Prescott's issues with Parsons went beyond contract drama. According to Albert Breer, Prescott and several teammates weren't big fans of Parsons' locker room behavior. While Parsons had close bonds with some players like Trevon Diggs, Breer reports that others viewed him as self-centered and egotistical, and even called out comments from Parsons' podcast as a source of friction that reached Prescott. On the field, Prescott and Parsons had no visible conflict. Off the field, though, Parsons' approach and public persona reportedly rankled veterans who've long been the clubhouse leaders, players like Zach Martin, CeeDee Lamb, and Prescott himself. Breer also noted football grind complaints. Teammates felt Parsons sometimes played out of structure pursuing highlight plays, which could hurt the team's run defense. Jerry Jones framed the trade as a long-term roster decision, but the cultural concerns Breer highlights help explain why the Cowboys ultimately moved on despite Parsons' elite production. Prescott reportedly exchanged messages wishing Parsons well after the deal, but the new reporting suggests Prescott's real opinion was shaped by more than just dollars and performance. The matchup adds extra spice. The Cowboys meet the Packers in Week 4 on Sunday Night Football, a likely moment for Parsons and Prescott to face each other under bright lights. Whatever gets said publicly, the behind-the-scenes dynamic Breer described helps explain why a team would trade a superstar rather than try to smooth things over.